Hello everyone, this is Dalster and welcome to another episode review for Dark Side of the Ring, and in this video it talks about the life and career of the Dynamite Kid. I actually knew about the Dynamite Kid days after Chris Benoit had taken his life, along with murdering his wife and one of his sons. CNN did a special called Death Grip, which might still be on YouTube if you want to check that out. And in the special, Dynamite Kid was in a wheelchair after taking a lot of steroids through the years, leaving him unable to walk. His situation looked really bad as his wife was also being interviewed and described the domestic violence that she went through because of him. Chris Benoit was heavily influenced by the Dynamite Kid, and the two of them were short wrestlers back then. Unfortunately, both of them are no longer alive due to steroid abuse and concussions, but people still talk about them. Before he became a big star in the 80s at Stampede Wrestling, Dynamite Kid was born in Goulburn, Lancashire, England. His real name was Thomas Wilton Billington, who was born on December 5th, 1958. He was nicknamed Tommy as well, and was known to have quick agility and put his body on the line when it came to wrestling in the ring. Michelle met Dynamite Kid when she and her sister went to a wrestling show and saw Bret Hart and the Dynamite Kid. They interacted with each other backstage and soon married once Michelle was 18. When the couple had their daughter, Bronwyn, Tommy did not want to hold her until she started walking because he was afraid that he was going to hurt her due to his strength from wrestling. Bronwyn described her father in the episode as a funny and goofy guy. Michelle said that her daughter Amaris is similar to her father Tommy, as she did flips when she was young, like he would do back in his wrestling days. Some of Dynamite Kid's best matches were with Jushin Liger, who was a huge Japanese wrestler. In 1984, Dynamite Kid signed with the WWF and would start using steroids so that he could have a better built body like many wrestlers had during that time period. When it came to the locker rooms in WWF, wrestlers would inject each other with steroids by using needles. One day, Scott McGee, whose real name is Gary Ports, and Dan Spivey were walking to the locker room and saw 10 needles stuck in the walls. In 1985, Tommy and Davey Boy Smith became one of the most popular tag teams, named the British Bulldogs. Jacques said in the episode that he saw Dynamite Kid once with a needle on his butt. At WrestleMania 2, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith became the tag team champions. In the episode, Mick Foley recalled a match he had with partner at the time, Les Thornton, when they were facing the British Bulldogs, and Mick got hit so hard in the jaw by Dynamite Kid that it almost ended Mick's wrestling career. Dynamite Kid started to become more violent towards his co-workers and used Halcyon on people's drinks. Halcyon is used to treat insomnia. He also used Halcyon on Gary's mom once. Another time that Dynamite Kid used Halcyon was on a wrestler named Mitch Snow, who was known to have a big mouth in the locker rooms. In a prank for Mitch, Tommy and Davey Boy sneaked into Mitch's room and crapped in his bag while he was asleep. Aside from that, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy shaved Mitch's eyebrows and hair that ultimately caused Mitch to go back home to South Carolina as he was scared for his life even though it was just a prank. Michelle said that Tommy was never sadistic until the aftermath of his back operation. In a non-televised event in 1986, Dynamite Kid's body had broken down and was taken to emergency surgery for his back. In the episode, Michelle said that Tommy's lumbars were shredded and his discs were tangled with his spinal cord. The doctors had to remove 2 discs and told Tommy to not wrestle anymore, but Tommy refused and went back to wrestle 2 weeks later. Once he got back, Tommy and Davey Boy had lost their titles to the Hart Foundation. After that, Tommy was in a wheelchair and stayed with Gary for a while. He had slept on the floor as it was the only place that made him feel comfortable. Gary recalled in the episode that his wife had told him that Tommy would cry in pain. Dynamite Kid then goes back to the ring after he had his back surgery months ago, but started to develop a bigger temper while being in pain. Gary said that he saw Tommy become violent towards Michelle during that time period. When they had a date, Michelle recalled not wanting to drink alcohol, so she instead drank tonic water. Tommy then grabbed her drink and spat it out, causing him to get mad at Michelle for ordering that drink. When they went home after that, Tommy woke Michelle up aggressively and shoved her in a closet, calling her a yard dog. Days later, Tommy and Michelle had a son named Merrick. Tommy tried to make up for his bad behavior by being more careful around his son, but it did not last long. Vince McMahon had the British Bulldogs face the Rogues in a tag team match, which led to a draw. Dynamite Kid was not happy about this. After that, as they were in the locker room, he slapped Jacques hard in the face while they were playing a game of cards, and he beats him up severely in the dressing room. Jacques tried to get revenge on Tommy and gets a roll of quarters that his father had advised Jacques to do so. While he was waiting for Dynamite Kid in the back, Jacques then hits him with a roll of quarters to his face and blood starts gushing out as Dynamite Kid also loses 4 of his teeth. Gary said in the episode that he thought Jacques hit Tommy with the brass knuckles. Tommy was not happy and soon buys a handgun, which Michelle was not happy about. During that time, Tommy had met Dino, who had ties with the mafia, and ended up moving as there was a picture of Tommy and his family inside Dino's house. Tommy never got his revenge on Jacques as he was dealing with the mafia. Jacques said that he tried to scare Tommy into thinking that the mafia was coming after him. In 1988, at Survivor Series, Tommy ended his career in WWF. Dave Meltzer felt that Tommy was not happy with WWF, so Tommy ended up going back to Japan. A week after leaving WWF, Tommy had his shoulder operated on, and 1 week after that, he got upset that Michelle had invited a friend over to the house one day. He was annoyed by it that Tommy tried to take off the bandages even though his shoulder had not fully recovered yet, causing Michelle to give in to Tommy's demands. His health and mentality started to deteriorate badly. On New Year's Eve, Tommy came home with a bloody shirt, as he also brought some friends over to the house, causing one of his daughters to get very scared from seeing him bleeding all over. Michelle said in the episode that she felt bad for not protecting her kids enough from seeing their father bleeding or acting out in front of them. One day, she bought a one-way ticket to England for Tommy, but he refused angrily. Bronwyn recalled seeing her father drag her mom by the hair. During that time, Michelle was pregnant but was threatened by Tommy as he came downstairs with a gun telling her that he would shoot Michelle if she did not get out of the house. Merrick and Bronwyn saw the whole thing and told their father not to do it. She tried to get help from the police, but Michelle said in the episode that they were no help and told her to just leave the house. Michelle leaves the house and goes to her sister Julie and Brett's house. Tommy eventually goes back to England in 1991, and days later, Michelle gives birth to a daughter named Amaris. She said in the episode that Amaris saved her life. Months later, Tommy had his retirement match in Japan. He was going to come and see his newborn daughter back then, but never did, and Michelle said that she was happy about it, as she did not want anything bad to happen in front of the kids. After retiring from Japan wrestling, Tommy ended up fighting in garages. Jacques said that Tommy never talked about his family to his co-workers. 5 years after retirement, Tommy went back to Japan and had a scrawny body instead of the muscular body that he had before. Unfortunately, Tommy ended up getting hurt and the doctor ended up amputating his legs, as he had so much scar tissue, even though he was still in his 40s. Amaris said that her mom had never spoken negatively about her father until the CNN report, where Michelle was interviewed about Tommy due to the Chris Benoit situation at the time. Michelle told her kids the truth on the day before the interview. Amaris said in the episode that she was very mad at both of her parents, but she felt that her mom had lied to her. Tommy never came back to Canada. Years later, Bronwyn had a child and decided to visit her dad one day, as she had missed him. Once she came to visit her dad, Bronwyn broke down crying since she had not seen him in 15 years. When she sat next to him, Tommy held her hand and started crying as he told his daughter that he was sorry. Days after that, Tommy had a stroke and passed away. When Tommy passed, Amaris called her mom about his passing, and Michelle told her daughter that her father will always be by her side. Dan and Gary said nice things about their friend Tommy and still love him even after all the trouble they went through. During the episode, we see Michelle and her daughters look through Tommy's old stuff, such as his in-ring gear and old photos. At the end of the episode, Mick Foley said that fans will remember Dynamite Kid during his prime years. Interviewers for this episode are Mick Foley, Dave Meltzer, Lance Storm, Michelle Billington, former wife of the Dynamite Kid, Julie Hart, sister of Michelle and ex-wife of Bret Hart, Bronwyn Billington, daughter of the Dynamite Kid, Amaris Billington, daughter of the Dynamite Kid, Dan Spivey, Gary Ports, also known as Scott McGee, and Jacques Rogu. Some facts about the Dynamite Kid is that Thomas was trained by Dr. Death, whose real name was Ted Bentley. He and Davey Boy were cousins. Bret Hart calls Thomas one of the best in-ring performers in wrestling. Tommy had two sisters and a younger brother named Mark. His father Bill and uncle Eric Billington were boxers during the early days, especially Tommy's grandfather Thomas, who was a bare-knuckle boxer though. One of his ancestors, named James, was also a wrestler, making Tommy come from a family full of athletes. During his youth, Tommy was more into sports, as he did some training in boxing instead of focusing on his academics. At the age of 13, Thomas trained with Dr. Death for 3 years. He won the British lightweight title on April 23, 1977 when he started to wrestle, and also got the welterweight title on January 25, 1978. Thomas was the reason why Chris Adams started his wrestling career while in the UK. When he went to Stampede Wrestling, Tommy wrestled Bruce Hart and rookie at the time Bret Hart. In 1979, Dynamite Kid took steroids when Junkyard Dog showed Tommy an anabolic steroid known as Dianabol. Aside from steroids, Dynamite Kid was introduced to speed by Jake the Snake Roberts, while Dynamite Kid was staying in Canada. Thomas started touring in Japan at the age of 19 all the way to 25 in July of 1975. He first toured with International Wrestling Enterprises, followed by New Japan Pro Wrestling on January 4th, 1980 to August 2nd, 1984. One of his popular matches was with wrestler Tiger Mask, who made his debut when he faced the Dynamite Kid and won. They wrestled more times, and their feud helped put junior heavyweight wrestling on the map for the wrestling community. In 1983, Thomas made his wrestling debut in the U.S. at Pacific Northwest Wrestling and feuded with Kurt Hennig, who was also known as Mr. Perfect. Thomas took the NWA Pacific Northwest Wrestling title from Hennig on September 7th that same year. He lost the title a month later but won the Pacific Northwest Tag Team titles with The Assassin. They eventually lost the titles a month later, but in 1984, Dynamite Kid was able to get the WWF Junior Heavyweight title after winning a tournament in New Japan Pro Wrestling, as the title was defended in Japan for some reason. In 1984, Dynamite Kid made his debut on WWF television of that year and defeated Iron Mike Sharp and Troy Alexander in a tag team match with Bret Hart. When he and Davey Boy Smith were the British Bulldogs, they had a lot of matches with the Hart Foundation that would end up in a no contest. Vince McMahon wanted the British Bulldogs to drop the tag team titles to the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, but Tommy refused as he wanted to drop the titles to the Hart Foundation. They ended up dropping their titles at WWF Superstars of Wrestling. However, Tommy was unable to walk well due to his recent back surgery he had in that same year. The Bulldogs eventually were no longer at the top of their game due to Dynamite Kid's injury, which happens to wrestlers who take time off due to recovering from an injury. The Bulldogs had their last match at Survivor Series in 1988 in an elimination type of match and lost due to being eliminated by Smash from Demolition. After WWF, the Bulldogs went on to wrestling promotions such as Stampede Wrestling and All Japan Pro Wrestling. The Bulldogs then turned on each other and had a feud until Davey Boy Smith went back to WWF in 1990. In January 1994, Tommy returned to England in order to work again for All-Star Wrestling. When Tommy visited Dan Spivey in Florida, he almost died twice after they took LSD. He got revived with adrenaline shots that the paramedics shot him with. His final match was in October of 1996 at a Michinoku Pro event called These Days. It was a 6-man tag team match as he was paired with Dos Caras and Kunaki Kobayashi and were against Great Sasuke, Mil Máscaras, and Tiger Mask. They won the match, but around that time, Dynamite Kid was very skinny and had a second seizure the next day as he was trying to go home and ended up going to the hospital instead. Tommy divorced Michelle in 1991, but had another wife named Dot when he moved back to England. Dot passed away this year on July 9th. He had 2 grandkids when he was still alive and 2 more after he had passed away. Tommy was close to the Hart family, but closer to Wayne Hart, as they lived in an apartment together one time except for Bruce Hart, who was hit hard in the jaw by Tommy. Dot took care of Tommy when he was bound to a wheelchair. He was told that he would never walk again before he passed away. Dynamite Kid and Chris Benoit would always use the diving headbutt, a move that was invented by Harley Race, who has stated that he regretted creating that move because it caused a lot of complications in the body such as spinal issues and concussions. He had his first stroke in 2013 due to heart problems. Tommy was involved in the lawsuit that multiple former WWE wrestlers were in, such as Ashley Massaro, King Kong Bundy, and Road Warrior Animal, where they have stated that they suffered brain damage while in WWE. This was the 2015 lawsuit that lawyer Konstantin Kairos was in, but was dismissed in 2018. He died on December 5th, 2018, on his 60th birthday, and it was confirmed by BBC that it was health issues that he died of. Chris Benoit was so influenced by the Dynamite Kid that he adopted the same moveset, such as sand dive headbutt and the snap suplex. Chris Benoit murdered his wife, son, and himself in June of 2007. As of today, Tommy's nephews, Thomas and Mark, are wrestlers and are also a tag team called the Billington Bulldogs. Thomas made his debut in AEW taking on the Dynamite Kid moniker. The original Dynamite Kid has won numerous titles in the promotions that he was in. In All Japan Pro Wrestling, he won the All Asia Tag Team Championship title with Johnny Smith, the NWA International Junior Heavyweight title, World's Strongest Tag Determination League Fighting Spirit Award with Davey Boy Smith for 2 years, the Skills Award, and the Fair Play Award, all with Davey Boy Smith. At Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, he won the AGPW International Heavyweight title once. He got into the Canadian Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2001. In joint promotions, he won the British Welterweight Championship title, the Lightweight title, and European Welterweight title, only once in each reign. At New Japan Pro Wrestling, he won the WWF Junior Heavyweight title and the Greatest Gaijin Junior section in 2002. In Pacific Northwest Wrestling, he won the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight title and the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team title with the Assassin. When the Dynamite Kid went to Stampede Wrestling, he won tons of titles such as the Stampede British Commonwealth Mid-Heavyweight title, the International Tag Team title with a variety of partners, the North American Heavyweight title, World Mid-Heavyweight title, and got into the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1995. During his time in WWF, he won the tag team title once with Davey Boy Smith. Pro Wrestling Illustrated ranked Dynamite Kid number 5 with Davey Boy Smith for best tag teams in 2003. They also ranked him as a singles wrestler at number 41 out of 500 wrestlers in 2003. He was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from Tokyo Sports. Wrestling Observer Newsletter voted the Dynamite Kid in Best Flying Wrestler, Best Technical Wrestler, Best Wrestling Maneuver in 1984, Hardest Worker, Most Underrated in 1980, Match of the Year in 1982, Tag Team of the Year in 1985, Most Impressive Wrestler from 1983 to 1985, and they put him in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in 1996. I give this episode a 9 out of 10 as it was good, but it felt kind of rushed. It was a little intense hearing from Tommy's kids on how they remember seeing him be violent towards their mom. The Dynamite Kid was a great wrestler, but paid a heavy price. It's still sad what happened to him and his family, but I hope for his ex-wife and kids the best in life. Have you guys watched the new Dynamite Kid? And if so, what do you think of him? I wonder why they did not mention Tommy's second wife in this episode, though. It sucks that his poor kids went through all that, especially his ex-wife, Michelle. What are your guys' thoughts? Should Dynamite Kid be in the WWE Hall of Fame or not? But thank you guys for watching this episode review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Comment, like, or subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye, guys.